Ever wish you could invite more signs, synchronicities, and awe into your life? If you've been curious about unlocking your intuitive gifts, you'll love Magic Lessons, my monthly series for paid Substack subscribers, where I teach beginning intuitives how to step into their gifts. I'll show you how to get signs from your ancestors, connect with your guides, read the tarot, and even do spell work. This class is everything I wish I would have known at the start of my spiritual awakening. Subscribe now at underthemoongate.substack.com or click the link in the show notes below and begin your journey with me, Under the Moongate. Welcome Under the Moongate, my secret garden to help you unlock your intuitive gifts. I'm Erin Bagwell, an intuitive medium, garden witch, and documentary filmmaker. I'm sharing stories, interviews, and lessons from beyond the veil to inspire us to find the magic within. Thank you for stepping through the gate and joining me in the garden. Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I am so excited to be here with you and to share a conversation with Eden Sky Orion. She is an ex-ballerina, a Pilates instructor, an astrologer, and an intuitive. And our conversation goes in all kinds of beautiful, winding spiritual ways. And one of the things that I really took away from the conversation is how our bodies are sending us intuitive messages, how they are so much wiser, I think, than we give them credit for. And it reminded me actually a lot, this conversation, of when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Virginia, and how I would wake up every day and my body would be doing all kinds of things and I had no idea what was happening. You know, I'd be growing a foot or I'd be doing this. And, you know, I definitely felt the discomfort and the fatigue of it, but I didn't tell my body to grow the baby. The body knew what to do. And so it's really interesting, this idea of looking at the body as this intuitive vessel that is sending us messages. You know, when we have a headache, what is it telling us? And so I have this beautiful conversation with Eden Sky Orion, and I'm really, really excited for you guys to listen in and just glean the beautiful insights from her. Before we dive into the episode, I wanted to read a couple of reviews. I've been doing a lot of readings lately. I've been doing mediumship readings, tarot readings, and it's been on my heart actually to offer a new service for creatives where we do kind of an intuitive creative session where I channel and I pull cards and we talk to your guides about a specific project or an art piece that you're working on. I have done this a couple of times with my friend Eleanor, and I find it to be really satisfying. We do it for each other, of like kind of making space in a spiritual way for the art. And so if that's something that speaks to you, you can go ahead and visit my website, thebuffalomedium.com, and book a reading. And here's what people are saying about the readings. Let's see. What are people saying? All right, this one is from MJ. She says, "My reading with Erin was an incredible experience that truly touched my heart. She made me feel like I was not alone, confirming the signs I thought I might be seeing and offering reassurance in a compassionate way. Her presence is so comforting, and the reading felt more like a therapeutic session, leaving me with a sense of peace, actionable steps that made my life better, and a feeling of understanding. I can't wait for another reading with her." MJ, thank you. What a beautiful and heartfelt review of our experience together. I'm always so gobsmacked when I get these gorgeous, testimonials, and I'm so honored to have them and put them on my website and share them with you here. Here's another one from Katie. She says, "My reading with Erin was really special, and it made me think about parts of my life in a brand new way and reconnect with my intuition. She made me feel supported and seen." Oh, I love that. I love the idea, too, that she felt seen, because I feel like my work is really just being an intuitive mirror, as I shared with Chelsea Devantez. And really, that means you're kind of seeing the true parts of yourself. So I love that little line. Here's one more. This one is from Al. She says, "The best thing about this is the confirmation that I'm not alone and that I still have ancestors who support me, love me, and are so eager to encourage me to have the life and love that they could never imagine for themselves. The Buffalo Medium gave me an incredible gift of knowing that I have a celestial cheering section." Oh, I love the idea of a celestial cheering section. And I think especially when we're in moments where we feel not so in alignment and not so grounded, it's so important to remember to call upon that celestial cheering section, that spirit board, whatever you want to call it, that there are forces and guides and beings and interconnected webs in the universe that we really truly have no conceit of, but that we can feel. And I will share an example. Yesterday, I was something had happened and I was feeling kind of down and my ego was bruised. And I was kind of going through the day slow yesterday. And I said to my guides, help me, calling all angels, ring a ding ding, get somebody down here. Get somebody down here. I need help. I need help getting through this day. This day was a hard day. And it was funny, my littlest Poppy, she grabbed the bell in my office and the bell that I use to clear and do readings. And she was ringing it all over the house. And I thought, well, that's sweet. Like, that's a beautiful little sign from spirit. Okay. Like, I get it. I'm feeling it. And then a couple of hours later, my dear friend from high school texted me and said, hey, I'm bringing Starbucks over and I'm going to bring cake pops for the girls and I'm going to do a pop in. And I thought, how magical. I hadn't seen her in such a long time. And she came over and we had this beautiful conversation. And the girls were running around like banshees with their cake pops. And it was just so wonderful. And after she left, I just said a little prayer, silent prayer. And I said, thank you, guide, so much for bringing me her and for creating space for it. I loved feeling so seen in those moments. And, I talk a lot about signs and how we connect and, how every time you see a sign, you should say thank you and hello, just in case. Just in case. You don't have to know in that moment when you're getting a sign that it really is for you. Our human skeptical mind is always going, well, is it really real? Is it really this? Doesn't matter. Thank you and say hello to whoever you think it's associated with. Because I'm telling you, when you really are having a bad day, when you are really feeling low, that's when you will know it's for you. That's when it'll ring so true and so loud. But you got to establish that relationship first. I am going to dive all into signs in magic lessons. I believe it's lesson 3 is all about signs. So we're at lesson 2 will come out June 1st. And this is for my paid Substack subscribers. If you guys want to go like a little bit deeper, it's $5 a month and you get basically intuitive lessons I wish I would have known at the start of my psychic journey. Every month I release a new lesson with practical tips, stories, examples, and then kind of a little bit of homework for you to do at home. If you're interested, you can go to underthemoongate.substack.com, join as a paid subscriber. It takes 30 seconds to join. I've got about 40 people in magic lessons right now. It's a wonderful group, and we're having a lot of fun diving into all of the mystery and the magic of the world. Okay, thanks guys for letting me do a little housekeeping today. Oh my gosh, we're already at like 7 minutes. Here we go. We got to dive into this episode. I'm just blabbing away here. Eden Sky Orion, the gorgeous chamomile tea, glowing ethereal orb of a woman. Please enjoy this conversation and thanks for joining me under the moon gate. Eden, welcome under the moon gate. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to dive into all things astrology and Pilates, body work, all of the things that are happening. I'd love to know kind of how your spiritual journey began.
Oh gosh. Well, I guess there's kind of two answers to that. One answer is that it was always there. It didn't have a beginning or end, and just the way that we're each spiritual beings having a human experience. But also my parents are very spiritual. So it was never something I had to seek out very far away. Spirituality was very present in my life from the moment I came to this planet. But the other answer of like my own taking spirituality and making it my own, that really began when I was a teenager and I was very sick with hormone issues, very severe PCOS. I was a serious ballet dancer. I had left high school, graduated early, moved to New York City to train full time.
Wow, that's a big responsibility for a teenager.
Yes, I mean, to me, it was like something I forced my family to let me do because it was like a calling, it was like I
Yeah.
did not do this. Came to New York, did not take care of myself, and just big changes, whatever. It was part of the spiritual path. That's how I see it. But yeah, I got very sick physically, mentally injured. I dislocated my knee several times.
Mm,
And so there was this couple year period that was really a dark night of the soul. It was really a lot of ego shattering, you could say, of like my identity of being a dancer and looking a certain way and feeling a certain way about myself and kind of where I sourced my self-confidence and all these ways that I built myself up into being me, kind of
yeah, yeah.
shattered.
Yeah, the big identity crisis, I think, of
Yeah.
being, of thinking you're something and then having to kind of release that feels like a very relatable story of the ego, right? We all have those experiences where we think, okay, this is it. This is my thing. This is my who I am. This is my purpose. And then we have to kind of learn how to adjust and flow and follow the breadcrumbs to the next thing. And it can be very devastating, especially for a young woman in New York. Were you by yourself? Were you living with other peers? Or what was your support system at that time like?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a supportive environment that I was in.
Mm,
Ballet school was very intense, very just toxic. And so I did have peers. I have one very dear friend, sister, that I still am close with from that time. And there's other lovely people there, but just the overall environment of the ballet academy was, yeah, very toxic, not supportive. And then I had some family here that I did stay with, and that was a source of physical support, like living in their apartment, but they didn't really understand what I was doing or why or anything
mm,
I was going through or
yeah.
who I was on that deeper level. I would call my mom every day and cry. And that was and that period of time is actually a time I'm so grateful for now because it really shaped everything that came after and everything that I do now in the most beautiful, meaningful way. And
Mm,
what I kind of had to keep asking myself was like, well, if I couldn't dance, I couldn't be a ballet dancer, who am I? Do I have any value? Do I even want to live? Like, who am I? And what I was able to find was this more expanded sense of self that is, okay, I'm a soul. I'm not just this body, but this body is my vessel and I need to take care of it.
mm.
And just, yeah, finding this deeper meaning of what it means to be here.
I think it's also very relatable to have kind of a spiritual breakthrough come from something that's quasi traumatic or hard.
Yeah.
I think oftentimes we think of enlightened people as these very, I don't know, easy breezy kind of folks. And I think time and time again, as I have these conversations, I just had Ellen Newhouse on the podcast, and she recalls like screaming at God, screaming, like having a breakdown and scream, like physically yelling.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to remind ourselves, to remind myself that, like, in those dark moments, in those feelings of misery and turmoil, and you named it perfectly, the dark night of the soul as we know it kind of in storytelling, that's when things get really interesting.
Yeah.
That's when kind of all the cards are on the table and we get to kind of move forward intentionally and build back up, and
Mhm.
things get better, and it's such an important part of the story.
Mhm.
But it can be kind of, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially when it's like physical health
Yes.
fault. It's a lot.
And I find in listening to these stories that that our physical bodies are often talking to us and often giving us, information and trying to get us to adjust. Do you have any thoughts about kind of the way you and your body kind of connect and speak to one another?
Oh my God. So many thoughts. That's everything. Yeah, that I would say one of the main most important things that whole time taught me was to really listen to my body and understand and have a shared language with my body and be able to understand what it was telling me. Because at first, with all the hormone issues, it's so confusing. It's like, why is this happening? Why does this affect me? Why am I so exhausted all of a sudden? And it was just a very slow process, honestly, of trying to listen,
Mm.
like talking to my body and being like, okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
What do you
And
need?
how does that work on like a practical level? So if like somebody is listening and they're like, okay, like I got it, like I'm in my body, the information my body has is important, but how do I like speak to my body or how do I get messages from my body? Do you have any, tips or like things that happen that you're connected, or can you speak a little bit more to that?
There's definitely a couple things on the practical side, but I think it's also just you have to be willing to kind of put in the time and
Mm.
be confused and just, like it doesn't for and it's so personal. It's like this is your body.
Mm.
So there is part of it that I think is just figuring it out on your own, and like that figuring it out is the good stuff too, because that's when you figure it out from inside, no one can take that away from you ever, that connection. Whereas like if you're always just looking for the steps that other people do, then one day it could be like, oh, well, that's wrong. Or, research information, these things change all the time. We find new information. So it's not like there's one
Right.
way to do anything, I think, when it comes to our health in the body. But on the practical level, definitely for me, a big thing was just mental reframes,
Mm.
not choosing to not see my body as an enemy, or my body's punishing me, or I
Mm.
need to punish my body, because that was such a big part of my mental landscape, ballet and stuff with eating and exercise and body dysmorphia and all of that. So there
Yeah.
was a lot of like telling myself over and over again, like me and my body are on the same team.
Mm.
And even just me saying it in order to convince myself, like, I love my body. I love that, just seeing all my symptoms as ways that my body was trying to communicate with me, ways
Mm.
my body was trying to help me help,
Mm.
instead of seeing my symptoms as these punishments. Like, I'm in pain. Why does my body hate me so much? Or
Yeah.
like, I had all these hypothyroidism was a big part of it. So it's like no energy. And I'm like, okay, my body's communicating that it needs rest. Or there's also this whole thing with cravings. It's like what you crave, it's like what the nutrients that your body needs or whatever. So I just tried to start thinking of things that way, where it's like, okay, my body's telling me that it needs something. And then there's a bit of trial and error. Like maybe I get it wrong. I think my body needs something and I get it wrong, and that's okay. And I'm just like on that journey of figuring it out, but really seeing symptoms as communication, not as punishment.
What an aha moment. I mean, flipping that narrative of this thing that's causing me discomfort or pain or anguish isn't actually for harm, it's for help. I think about that a lot in terms of mental health as well. It's like, I'm in a bad mood or, my mind is sending me intrusive thoughts. And for so long, it was this big battle
Yeah.
of like this other entity that was, kind of what I felt like was punishing me, like to use your words, or, making me feel bad. But I can't remember. I think it was, she's one of Oprah's life coaches. She wrote a book about integrity. I'll link it in the show notes. One of the things she wrote about was like that these symptoms of pain are actually huge, huge, knowings in our body and in our mind of getting help, of sending a signal that says something is wrong, we need to address this. And when
Yeah.
I learned that and when I figured that out, it was such a beautiful release too, of feeling like, okay, everything's still working for me.
Yeah.
This isn't trying to like take me down. This is trying to build me up in some way. And this is how my body communicates to me.
Yeah,
And it can be
exactly.
frustrating, but flipping that narrative is so powerful.
So frustrating, because especially when you're having like autoimmune kind of issues, it's like your body is doing the wrong thing. It's like trying to
Right.
help itself, but in this way that does cause you pain. And so yes, extremely frustrating. But I was kind of so flattened out by everything. Like I had nowhere, there was almost like nowhere worse I could go.
Mm,
It was like I had no choice but to just be like, my body is doing its best right now.
yeah.
And like, how can I support myself? And it was a lot of rest
Mm,
that really I needed. Like I was definitely burnt out on every level just from my dancing lifestyle and how I did it. I not eating, dancing all day, smoking a bunch of cigarettes, home, like doing more an hour more on the elliptical after a full day of dancing.
wow, wow, wow.
Like, so how long can your body last like that?
Hmm.
Especially when you are very sensitive, physically, spiritually, in all the ways. It's like I really just crashed.
I'm curious how we got from kind of having this kind of sounds like a beginning relationship with the body where you're kind of listening to yourself, you're learning what your body needs, you're thinking about cravings and different things in a different way. How do we get then to kind of Pilates
Yeah,
and, maybe I'm assuming that's a different relationship with you when
yeah,
you're kind of in that space and you're teaching. Can you share us a little bit about that journey?
yeah. So basically, that teenage dark night of the soul, there was like 1 year where I just wasn't, I couldn't do anything. And I was just healing and resting. And after that year, my body was a lot better and I started dancing again. But because I had this whole inner change, this whole perspective shift, and this different relationship to my body, I was still trying to make my dance career work, but didn't quite fit anymore because I was such a different person. And so it took me a couple more years to like really be ready to quit dancing or like retire
Mm,
that identity more fully. And when I did, I kind of was in this moment like I have no idea what the fuck I'm gonna do with my life now. You know,
yeah.
I hadn't planned on going to college. I did that wasn't on my radar. Like I didn't know. And so there's a very like common dancer to fitness instructor pipeline. And
Sure.
basically, I just started working at this Pilates studio at like the front desk, and the owner of the studio was like, "I really need more teachers. Why don't you get trained and I'll just mentor you and you can teach here." And like, and I was just like, "Okay, why not?" I didn't
Hmm.
know what else I was doing. I was figuring out what my next chapter of life would be, and so I just kind of started teaching Pilates. And Pilates had been something I'd done since I was a little kid because as in ballet, you would do Pilates as like your cross training.
Mm,
I was familiar with it, but in that time where I kind of needed a new place to like direct my energy and a new physical practice to bite into, Pilates really filled this space in this very healing way where also just learning, because in Pilates is very much about anatomy and alignment, and I learned so much about the function of the body, not just the aesthetic. Pilates gave me this whole new perspective on what is my body for? How does it work? How do I support it? And it was like maybe 2 months of not dancing full time, just doing more Pilates. I woke up one day and my body had so much less pain. It was like
mm.
my Achilles, like I had really bad Achilles tendonitis for years. And I woke up one day and then I just realized that my Achilles weren't in pain. And I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, living without pain is just amazing. It was like
Mm,
breath of fresh air that I didn't even realize I was in pain because it just
yeah.
becomes so normal. Pilates gave me this very new, healing, healthy ideas about the body and way to move and use my body, but in that supportive way. And I still teach Pilates. I still don't see it as my full career, but it's something that I'm deeply grateful for. And I feel like to me, Pilates is for life. And I've taught people in their 70s, 80s, 90s who do Pilates. They're just, they stand up tall, they're
Mm.
strong, they have good balance. They're like, it's just, yeah, such a source of nourishment.
I love that word nourishment. And it does feel like, you've had such an incredible journey with your body that it makes sense that you would then find something that serves it and strengthens it in this way. So I'm glad you guys have found each other.
Oh, yeah.
I feel similarly about actually getting pregnant,
Mhm.
watching my body, grow bigger and become different and grow a baby was such a weird and wonderful process that I remember like, oh, my body's so much stronger and smarter and
Yeah.
more in tune. And like I'm not waking up with the checklist saying, grow a foot today. Like the body knows. And so it was such an extraordinary process to like bear witness to in that way. And so that reminded me of that. I'm curious how astrology kind of weaves its way into your spiritual story, because I know it's such a big part of your
Yeah.
life.
Yes. Well, all these things are just like weaving and braiding simultaneously. And it's been in the past couple of years that I've really been like bringing them together intentionally. Astrology was also always there. My parents had my chart read when I was born. It was like, it's been around. But in that same teenage dark night of the soul moment is when I really got into astrology, where I would like
Mm.
obsessively read my horoscope every day. And that was not my healthiest habit. I evolved out of that, but I would always, be reading about what was going on in the astrology, the new moon, the full moon, and I would make my own rituals and practices and create my own understandings of the astrology and my chart. And then it was in the pandemic that I took an actual course that was like, here's how you read a chart.
Mm.
I did that for the first time then. And when I was learning that information, it was like I already knew it. It was like
Yeah.
so innate. It felt like this language that I already spoke.
Mm.
And it was just very rapid. I was like reading people's charts and just incorporating astrology into everything and speaking about it more. And that was a very natural progression. I actually had a lot of resistance to like sharing it more publicly and really taking it seriously
Hmm.
that I had to work through. But yeah, it was just this thread that was always there really in this more just like my own curiosity and passion and part of my personal practice. And it just eventually was kind of telling me that I needed to be doing it.
Can you speak a little bit more to kind of your resistance about sharing it?
Oh, classic witch wound stuff of just
Hmm.
when I was into all these things and growing up, when this is like a part of my life and my family, and no one was like into talking about that, or at least where in my immediate environment that I was exposed to. It wasn't like, oh, this is cool, like
Yeah.
people wanting to lean in and learn more. And now, even now, when I meet someone and I'm like, oh, I'm an astrologist, and someone will be like, oh, like have a weird reaction to it. I think, but for the most part, people are really open and curious and leaning in. So I had all this fear about claiming that and people rejecting it or thinking it was weird or just not wanting to be out about it, not wanting to be seen as different, as odd, as crazy, as whatever, all of those things.
Yeah. The witch wound is such an interesting part of the spiritual process, I think, especially for women, because it's so embedded in kind of our psyche and in our culture, the way we treat, witches, I think, is often the way we treat women. And so there is this level of kind of, I don't even want to call it shame. It's more about like playing small. Like we respect women who can fit into the boxes that society and culture has deemed worthy or appropriate. And oftentimes these spiritual entities and, whether you're an astrologer or a medium, like these are outside of the box professions anyway. And then to be a woman on top of it adds a different layer of, judgment to it. I'm wondering how I have kind of two questions that are popping into my brain. The first one is, do you feel like you're still working through it? And also, kind of what ways are you working through it? And the other question is, and feel free to answer whatever you'd like, if you could go back and speak to yourself kind of at the beginning of your astrology, like, is there anything you would say to give your past self confidence?
Those are great questions. What I would say to my past self is it's like the more that you're just you, the more you attract the right people,
Mm,
and connect authentically with people and have that kind of satisfying friendships. And there's lots of people at all points in time that are into these things and don't find them strange. And really, when I was in college, so after dancing, I was kind of like a little bit older than when people start college, but I went to college and eventually I started studying Buddhism. And that's when I really found people that I could like talk spiritual to
Mm.
and also philosophical, because there is a whole realm of spiritual community that I really don't resonate with, where it's really ungrounded. And I feel that I'm in this in between of way woo out there. Like I could go there with you, but I personally also like to be grounded in like reality is real.
Hmm.
And we can be open to the other side and open to what's more than we can, the average person can see or whatever, but still, yeah, retain the sense of what is real,
Mm.
or just groundedness and the
Yeah.
in the body. In studying Buddhism, I found that combo. And that really encouraged me to just be myself and be like, this is what I'm into, this is what I'm interested in, this is who I am. And I don't have to get along with everyone. Not everyone has to get it or understand, or not everyone has to.
Yeah, I think about this a lot that we need everybody to kind of share their voice.
Yeah.
You know, everyone needs to step into whatever they feel like they need to step into right now. And not everything is going to resonate with every person.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And that can be difficult, I think, because we all want to be, especially women, likable and,
Yeah.
in connection. And, and of course, the witch's wound plays a role in that. But
Mhm.
we need everybody to come out these times.
I mean, exactly. Like if be your authentic self, live your truth, share it with others, bless. Like, of course, it's not going to resonate with everyone. And, I do feel that, and I was kind of like preparing or writing about this the other day to share something, but it's hard to talk about how some people are really good at marketing or really
Mm,
good at PR. And there's this almost, I don't know the word, it feels like pornifying of the spiritual journey,
mm,
that with these certain identities,
yeah.
right? Like that doesn't resonate with me.
Hmm.
And I know my own judgments are wrapped up in there, but it's like, especially in, Instagram land of things, like it's easy to get lost in these personas and the
Mm.
identities, and that I'm special because I'm whatever.
It's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a good point. I think we all have to be, aware of the things that we're receiving and how it makes us feel. And the word that
Yeah.
keeps coming back to me, which you kind of had mentioned before, is like sovereignty. Like we need to decide what's going to work for us. Like somebody's spiritual journey might not resonate. Their tips and tricks might not work at all. Like we
Yeah.
really have to do the work ourselves, unfortunately. So that's
Mhm.
part of it. We've reached the part of the show where this is called Ask a Medium. So I am making myself available if you have any questions or thoughts or, random things in your spiritual journey that you've come across or dreams or experiences that you kind of want to dive deeper into.
Hmm. Several years ago, 6-ish years ago, I was having spirits who were kind of stuck on this plane, pushing me,
Mm,
and not pushing in a harmful, seeking harm way, but more to get attention because they could sense that I was sensing them.
mm-hmm.
And so there was several, yeah, experiences of being pushed, where then there was a spirit that was like, where am I? Why am I here? What's happening? And I was helping them transition
Mm-hmm.
to the light as I see it. See it, or how would you kind of make meaning of that if that was happening to you?
I have lots of thoughts about this. I love that your instinct was to kind of move them along. Can you talk to me more about kind of your instincts on feeling like, okay, and how maybe you did that?
I called in help from my mother. My
Mm,
mom, she it's very hard to put labels on her work. She doesn't, there's not a lot of terms that she likes, but she does mediumship work. And so I had a really big source of support there.
mm-hmm.
So the first time that it happened, I called her and I was like, what the fuck? I was really, and so
Yeah.
I was just on the phone with her and she was like, okay, first you have to just be grounded. And she energetically helped me ground. She's a
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn. She's very like earthly. She's super grounded for someone who's so out there.
Mm-hmm.
So grounded. And then she kind of just walked me through like, okay, calling this spirit forward, talking to it. Who are you? What do you need? So it was through her guidance that we did that together. And then what was crazy was that that door was then open and she was like, is there anyone else that's here that wants to come forward? Or is there anything more? And someone came forward who was a family member that I had never heard of in my life, like
Mm.
distant. But my mom knew this name, who this person was. Um, and I heard this name and I was like, this name. I was kind of like, hmm? And my mom was like, oh, that's this person. And so that was interesting for me, just in a kind of confirming way that like I literally never heard of this woman,
Yeah.
but she was there and she had a message to share. So
Mm.
yeah, then after that, it kind of kept happening over and over again with the getting pushed. And I was like, but then after it happened like the third time, I was like, turn it off. I was like, we're stopping this. Like, this is not my job. I don't want this job. I don't want to be doing this. Like,
Yeah.
not right now. Just like set that boundary. So
Mm.
that's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when people are transitioning, when they die, when people die, I think that there are energetic levels of where people can go through the veil.
Yeah.
So I think some people get stuck in the earth dimension because they feel most of the time like either like regret about their death, like they don't feel like it was their time, and so they refuse to let go. I've channeled people who, are really surrendering to their death experience and say like, okay, I'm stepping into spirit world. This is the next part of my chapter. And I've channeled people who don't want to be in spirit and they want to be here on earth. And that can mean that they have some kind of unfinished business or there's a loved one they feel deeply connected to, they can't release. There's so many different reasons why somebody might want to stay more earthbound. And those are typically our kind of ghosts that people feel or see, like maybe a space is occupied that feels a little bit denser
Mhm.
and can energetically kind of, mess with the lights, can give you a shove. They're kind of here in the earth plane, but they're not.
Mhm. Mhm.
My mother's Catholic, she'd call it a certain purgatory is like the word they
Mhm.
use. And it's interesting because I have had ancestors who, I'm going to use the word badgered me when I first started my journey to help them transition too. And so I don't think it's uncommon when you're opening yourself up. And I'm so glad you asked this question to receive people who are kind of like, or spirits who want you to help them. And for
Yeah.
you to be like, what am I doing here? Like, what's going on? Why is this happening?
It's almost like
And
they're just like they're like right here, like they're the closest by.
yeah,
So when you open the door, it's like they're already right there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And I also want to say like, our guides and our ancestors and angels and whoever kind of, whatever spiritual folks are helping you or on your spirit board, like they're around you too, but
Yeah.
they're through like such a specific a heavier veil, let's say. So it's not like you can reach out and feel like you can touch them. They're more further away from you, like through a different, let's say they're in 10 dimensions away, but they're right next to you. Whereas the people who are, in that purgatory space are maybe like one dimension away and like things are weird and things are happening.
Yeah.
I think something that I really like to lean back on when stuff like this happens to me, and the reason I asked you kind of about your knowing and your intuition, and I love that it kind of manifested through your relationship with your mother, is like most of the time we know what to do, actually. Most of the time, like if we have a spell we want to do or there's something we need tinkered in our life, I think our first instinct is to like Google it or to ask somebody else, like, what do you do? But
Mhm.
really, so much of the spiritual journey, I think, is about remembering.
Yeah.
And so, something that I have come to know in my practice and through just like other different various experiences, is the way that I help people transition is through the Pegasus.
Mm.
And she is kind of this beautiful winged white horse that helps people kind of move into the light. And I've had it manifest as butterflies, but definitely winged beings seem to be kind of that ilk, where they will join you in spirit and then kind of help usher that person into the next realm, which obviously we can't go to. And so when I have ancestors or, folks who show up, or maybe even if you're in like this has happened to me before, where you're in like an Airbnb and something's weird on like a floor and you're like, I'm not going into that room.
Yeah.
I say a prayer to the Pegasus and I say, if they're around or they're open and if you want to guide them, like I kind of pass the energetic baton to the to the spirit side to
Yeah.
like, so that's something people can try, if that feels in alignment with them.
Definitely. Yeah. Since then, since that, those experiences where then I was like, okay, turn it off. Like I'll still have perceptions of things sometimes. And I'm like, I I don't feel that I want this position of being that usher,
Hmm.
but I will, if I see something or I pick up something, I will say a prayer that whoever protects this space or this person or whatever it is, help them clear, release, or move what they need to move. And just like
Mm.
we don't have to do it all alone. I think that was the part that scared me a lot too, was like, I don't know, the responsibility or something. I just wasn't ready for that.
Yeah, and I think it takes time to, feel into asking for help and knowing who our guides are and knowing who we can call on in those instances. Like I don't feel like I ever am entering the spirit world alone.
Yeah.
And I think if you had the perception that you were kind of just floating in the abyss, like that would be scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I mean, with my astrology work, with my astrology readings, when I really figured out how I wanted to set the container of the reading energetically and who I was calling in and what prayers and support I was claiming, it really changed the
Mm.
readings, the experience for me, but also for the person receiving the reading.
Yeah.
So it's like having that practice of, I'm not doing, when you're doing spiritual work, you're never doing it alone. In fact, any work we're doing, like nothing is really done alone. There's always people's shoulders that we're standing on or people that are supporting the process, whatever that looks like. But especially in the spiritual work, yeah, you are a vessel for this greater force.
Yeah, and I think just to like kind of bring us full circle back to conversation around the body, like I feel like I'm just kind of like a catalyst for spirit in so many ways. Like I make myself available and open, and then things work through me and they tell me what to do. Like I just recently did my first Reiki session. I'm not Reiki trained. I don't know what I'm doing, but I happened to be in a situation where I wanted to perform some healing work and this person wanted me to do it. And I was like, let's practice. Like it was a very consensual, energetic exchange. And so I'm standing over her and I'm like, like I don't know what to do. And then I felt two angels next to me and I started crying. And they were like, okay, this is what you do. And I was like, okay. And it was such a beautiful, powerful, moving experience to just be like, I'm here. I'm physically going to be present. I'm going to show up. And then you tell me what to do. I think that kind of allowing things to come through is when really I think the magic happens.
And I definitely, for me, all going back to that core thing of the relationship with the body and this seeing the symptoms not as punishment, but as like my body's trying to work, we're working together. It's like just fostering that trust with my body, which is almost like an unknown force sometimes,
Mm.
just like spirit. Having that trust with myself and yeah, what I can't see that my body is doing, for me, the core of being able to trust the intuition, being able to trust and being able to be present enough, like you were, to receive and channel that healing. So powerful and cool.
It's a wild journey we're on, you
Wow,
know?
journey. It's so awesome too. Sometimes I'm like so grateful that I can go through life in this way Whereas, but much earlier in the journey, it felt like such a burden, or the extra sensitivity was so like overwhelming or just like too much, and now I'm like, oh my God, what if I didn't have this, that
Mm.
I could be so much less colorful and connected and beautiful, and just it really is a gift once you figure out how to work with
Well, I would take it a step further to say, feel overwhelming and scary and uncertain. And then, as you said, you learn how to work with them and then you can call upon them.
it.
And I feel like when that power dynamic shifts a little bit of feeling like things are happening to you, to them being able to use the magic to, make the world more peaceful or more healing or however it want to manifest in your day to day or your life or your journey, like we can now use kind of these connected synchronicities and these signs and these messages and like actually they're going to help enhance us and we can be part of the process. It's like a co-creation of feeling, ugh, these things are like coming down on me, to flipping that narrative to no, actually, I have the power here and I can pull in the boundaries and I can pull in when I want to use spell work. And you can kind of step into it in a more
More agency, yeah.
and then in a more authentic way to you so that you don't feel like you're being steamrolled by your
Yeah.
sensitivities.
Yeah. Yes.
The part of the show where I ask you what your gifts are.
Hmm. People have definitely told me that a gift that I have is making them feel very calm.
Mm,
This like soothing, kind of like chamomile tea energy.
I feel that.
Yeah, and I embrace that more now, and I really do see it as a gift, but didn't always feel that way. I don't know. It's not even something I'm trying to do. It's not something that I'm aware I'm doing really. It just
Hmm.
happening. But I've come to see it and it's more just of that same witch wound stuff of like resisting the gifts. I'm like,
Mm,
oh, this is actually something beautiful, not something I need to feel bad about,
yeah.
ashamed about.
Do you feel connected to earth energy a lot?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I feel that for you.
Yeah.
That part of what is keeping you grounded or anchored is your, like some people I think are really, celestial to bring it back to the Pleiadian. And some people are really grounded in earth energy. And, some people are really water based in the way that they find like soothing. So I'm just curious if you've kind of explored that relationship, or do you have a garden or anything like that? Are there any kind of
Mm.
seeds that are being planted that way for you?
Well, I wish I had a garden, but I live in New York City. So
Mm-hmm.
I have some I have some plants, but they're actually not doing very well.
Mm.
Oh, I don't there's definitely some kind of death rebirth cycle that I'm in right now that's being reflected in my plant baby. Um, but yeah, even through the lens of astrology, I work with the elements a lot, and I have a lot of water energy, and my chart's like all water, basically
Mm.
very little fire, which is why I always like light a candle to bring in fire.
Yeah.
Or some of the other like more psychic gifts are fun too, where I see things, see,
Mm-hmm.
like auras, but not colors. I just see light
Mm.
around people, and definitely can talk to the other side sometimes. Although that ability has scared me a lot. And so I kind of like closed the door and I'm opening it back up now more intentionally. Because it's just not a door that I want to have open all the time. You
Yeah.
know, it takes skill, like as you know, I'm sure, to be in that kind of communication.
Yeah. And I think in the beginning it can feel overwhelming, before you have all the boundaries and you're understanding what your capacity is and things like that and what some of the messages are. So I would say that's normal to kind of open the door, close the door, be figuring it out. And then, something I always recommend in my classes when I teach about clairvoyance and things like that is writing your boundaries with spirit on a piece of paper
Oh, I like that.
and saying, "This is when you can contact me. This is a sign that I'm available to you. Like when I light a candle, like spirit knows like I'm open for business.
Mhm.
And so, like, writing down these things, don't come to me in the bedroom, don't come to me at night, like anything that you feel resonates, or if you're working, or maybe you want to receive messages, maybe you don't. But spirit will absolutely respect your boundaries, which is an incredible practice to do.
Mhm. Mhm. I love that. Yeah, really like writing it down, clarifying it for yourself instead of just having the open door policy.
Yeah. I'm curious, when you speak to dead people, are you seeing them? Are you hearing them? Are you feeling them? Like what Claire kind of comes through? Do you know? Or is it a combination?
Combo. It kind of depends what state I'm in and what my level of presence is, I guess. A lot of the time it's feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then sometimes it's hearing. I would say the one I have the least is seeing,
Mm,
where I have had, if I see, it's more in like a shadowy form or like a form of light. It's not like a clear vision
yeah.
for the most part. I've had more clear visions when I'm in like a hypnagogic state. So like just waking up or just falling asleep. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the vision for me comes on line.
Yeah.
But it's mostly, yeah, feeling, hearing, and almost like a clear cognizance, kind of just like,
That just knowing.
yeah.
Eden, I've loved chatting with you. Where can people find you? How can they support your work? Where do you want to send them?
Yes, thank you for having me. So fun. People can find me mostly on Instagram, which is just my name, Eden Sky Orion. And then Substack is where I pour a lot of really my art, and my channel goes into my writing on Substack. And it's called As Above, So Below. But you can also just find it through my name, Eden Sky Orion. And I guess I'm kind of on TikTok, but not really. I'm like, so if you're a TikToker, technically you can find me there, but I'm not super active on there.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Eden, for joining me under the Moongate.
Thank you.
Under the Moongate is produced and hosted by me, Erin Bagwell, with music by Sal Mastrocola. To get monthly magic lessons, replays of my workshops, and tickets to live reading events, join me as a paid Substack subscriber by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting underthemoongate.substack.com. To book your own private reading with me, visit my website, erin-bagwell.com. And help me pass the magic along. Rate, review, subscribe, and share this episode with a friend. If you want to reach me, you can email me at thebuffalomedium@gmail.com. Thanks so much for listening.
The wizard and I. What if there will be the wizard and I?
That was beautiful.
Oh,